What if I told you that the most powerful marriage in all of mythology started with a deception so dark it would be front-page scandal news even today? Many of you probably think you know the story of Zeus and Hera, the king and queen of the gods, right? Well, let me tell you something that'll change everything you thought you knew about this so-called divine romance. Everyone talks about how Zeus cheated on Hera constantly, but here's what almost nobody mentions. Their marriage didn't begin with love or even an arranged political alliance. It began with what we recognize today as assault and coercion. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why Hera's legendary revenge wasn't really about jealousy at all. It was about survival.
Now, you're probably thinking, come on, wasn't their wedding supposed to be this grand celebration? And you're right. Ancient sources tell us their wedding night supposedly lasted 300 years. Can you imagine? An eternity of divine bliss with all the gods celebrating this perfect union? But here's where things get interesting. That golden celebration, it was hiding a secret so dark that it would doom Hera to a lifetime of pain. Because the question nobody asks is this: if their marriage was so perfect, why did it start the way it did?
Well, let me tell you the story of how the king of the gods actually won his bride. Zeus had been pursuing Hera for ages, but she kept refusing him. Smart woman, right? She could probably sense something was off about this guy. So what did Zeus do when he couldn't get what he wanted through normal means? He transformed himself into a small, wounded cuckoo bird during a terrible storm. Picture this: Hera, goddess of women and protector of the innocent, finds this poor little bird shivering and hurt. What would you do? She did exactly what any compassionate person would. She took pity on the creature and held it close to keep it warm. But here's what the story gets really dark. The moment Hera showed kindness to what she thought was a helpless animal, Zeus revealed his true form and forced himself on her. Then he told her she had to marry him to restore her honor. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, that's not romance. That's manipulation and assault. And you're absolutely right. This wasn't some cute mythological meet cute. This is a powerful male using deception, force, and social pressure to trap a woman who had clearly said no multiple times. That's the real question, isn't it? How did this become the foundation story for the greatest marriage on Olympus? But wait, there's more. Because if you think Zeus changed his behavior after marriage, you're in for a rude awakening. Let me walk you through just 3 of his most shocking affairs, and I guarantee you'll see a disturbing pattern. First up, Io. Zeus pursued this priestess relentlessly, and when Hera got suspicious, what did he do? He turned Io into a cow. A cow! Can you imagine? And then when Hera still figured it out, she sent a gadfly to torment poor Io, who had to wander the earth in animal form, constantly stung and driven mad. Then there's Europa. Zeus saw this young woman and decided he wanted her. So he transformed into a beautiful white bull, kidnapped her by carrying her across the sea, and started an entire royal dynasty with her. The woman literally has a continent named after her because of Zeus's predatory behavior. And similarly, Zeus's affair with her ended with her death by lightning. His own lightning, because Hera tricked her into asking Zeus to appear in his true form, which no mortal could survive. Do you see the pattern here? Zeus's favorite trick wasn't just cheating. It was transforming himself into animals to deceive and overpower women. A bull, a swan, even golden rain at one point. This wasn't just infidelity. This was systematic predatory behavior. Now, here's where most people get the story completely wrong. They paint Hera as this jealous, vindictive wife who couldn't handle her husband's wandering eye. But what if I told you that's not what was really happening at all? Think about Hera's position for a moment. She's trapped in a marriage that began with assault, with a husband who repeatedly betrays and humiliates her, and she literally cannot leave. In the ancient world, and especially in the divine realm,
divorce wasn't an option for her. As the goddess of marriage itself, she was bound to this institution that was slowly destroying her. So, what would you do if you were trapped with no way out, watching your abuser hurt person after person, knowing you couldn't confront him directly because he held all the power?
Hera did what many abuse survivors do. She redirected her pain toward targets she could actually reach. When she tormented Leto, preventing her from giving birth to Apollo and Artemis, that was Hera lashing out at someone she could hurt because she couldn't hurt Zeus. When she cursed Echo to only repeat others' words, that was displaced rage. When she made Heracles' life a living hell with those 12 labors, she was punishing Zeus through his son because she couldn't punish Zeus himself. Many of you are probably wondering, but why didn't she just fight back directly? Well, let me tell you what happened the one time she tried. Hera actually organized a rebellion against Zeus with other gods. And you know what Zeus did? He hung her from the sky with golden chains and anvils attached to her feet, leaving her suspended in agony until she begged for mercy. That's when Hera learned the brutal truth. Resistance meant torture. So, she found other ways to fight back, ways that wouldn't get her literally chained in the heavens. But here's the most heartbreaking irony of all. Every single prayer for a happy marriage, every blessing requested for wedded bliss, every hope for marital harmony, they all went to Hera. The goddess trapped in mythology's most toxic marriage became the symbol of everything she herself never had. Can you imagine the psychological torture of that? Day after day, mortals would pray to her, "Hera, please bless my marriage. Help me find true love. Keep my husband faithful." And she'd have to listen to these pleas while living with a partner who had forced her into marriage and continued to betray and humiliate her at every turn. It's like being a marriage counselor who goes home to an abusive relationship every night. The woman whose job it was to protect the institution of marriage was being destroyed by that very institution. What would you do in her position? How long could you maintain your sanity when your entire identity revolves around something that's causing you endless pain? Now, you're probably thinking, if Zeus was so terrible, why didn't Hera just hate him completely? But here's where the psychology gets really complex and unfortunately really relatable to many modern situations. Hera and Zeus weren't locked in constant warfare. There were periods of reconciliation, moments when Zeus would show her affection or respect. These glimpses of the relationship she might have wanted created what psychologists call a trauma bond, where the victim becomes psychologically attached to their abuser through cycles of abuse and affection. Ancient sources actually describe times when Hera and Zeus seemed genuinely happy together. But these peaceful interludes only made the betrayals more devastating. It's the classic cycle. Tension builds, explosion happens, then comes the honeymoon period, where the abuser is charming again, making promises to change. That's the real question, isn't it? How many people today are trapped in similar cycles, staying in relationships that hurt them because of the occasional moments of kindness that remind them of what they hoped it could be? But wait, there's more to consider. Hera wasn't just any woman trapped in a bad marriage. She was a goddess with her own power and responsibilities. She ruled over women, marriage, and family. Mortal women looked up to her. What kind of message would it send if the goddess of marriage couldn't make her own marriage work? She was caught between two impossible choices: stay and suffer, or leave and abandon every woman who needed her protection. Because if the goddess of marriage herself gave up on the institution, what hope would anyone else have? This is something many people today understand all too well. Staying in harmful situations because leaving would hurt others who depend on you, or because it would contradict everything you've told people you believe in. Do you see how trapped she really was? It wasn't just about personal happiness. It was about her entire identity, her responsibilities to others, and the crushing weight of being a symbol instead of just being allowed to be a person. So here's what I want you to consider. Maybe we've been telling this story wrong all along. Maybe
Hera wasn't the villain of Greek mythology, maybe she was one of its greatest victims. A woman whose story of survival has been rewritten as a tale of female jealousy and spite. Think about how her story gets told, even today. Oh, Hera was so jealous and vindictive. But what if we reframed it? Hera was a trauma survivor fighting back the only way she could, protecting what little agency she had left in an impossible situation. When you look at it that way, suddenly her actions make sense. The woman who couldn't escape her own nightmare marriage spent her divine power trying to protect the institution of marriage for others, even as it destroyed her. Many of you are probably wondering why this ancient story matters today. Well, let me tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. Hera's story is still happening right now. How many people do you know who are trapped in relationships by financial dependence, social expectations, or fear of what leaving would mean for their children? How many people stay in situations that hurt them because they've built their entire identity around being someone's partner? Or because admitting the relationship is toxic would mean admitting they've wasted years of their life? Hera's story forces us to ask hard questions about power, consent, and survival. It challenges us to look at the victims of abuse with more compassion and understanding, to see their coping mechanisms not as character flaws, but as desperate attempts to maintain some sense of control in situations where they have very little. What would you do if you were in Hera's position? Really think about it. If you couldn't leave, couldn't fight back directly, and had to maintain a public image while privately suffering, how would you cope? But here's the final twist that makes Hera's story even more heartbreaking. She was actually good at her job. Despite her personal suffering, Hera genuinely helped other couples find happiness in marriage. She protected wives from abusive husbands, blessed faithful partnerships, and guided young women toward healthy relationships. She became the goddess who could give others what she herself had been denied. The woman trapped in mythology's worst marriage became the expert on how marriage should actually work. Can you imagine the strength that took to continue believing in love and partnership and commitment while living with someone who violated all of those ideals? To help others achieve the happiness that was stolen from you. That's not villainy. That's heroism of the most painful kind. So the next time someone tells you about jealous Hera and her petty revenge, I want you to remember this. We're looking at the story of a woman who survived. A woman who found ways to fight back when direct confrontation meant torture. A woman who turned her pain into protection for others. Hera's story isn't a cautionary tale about female jealousy. It's a testament to the resilience of abuse survivors and a brutal examination of how power structures can trap even the most powerful women. The real question isn't why Hera was cruel to Zeus's lovers. The real question is how she managed to survive with her sanity intact for thousands of years, trapped in a marriage that began with assault and continued with constant betrayal. Maybe it's time we started telling her story the way it deserves to be told. Not as the tale of a vindictive wife, but as the saga of a survivor who refused to be completely broken, even by the king of the gods himself. What do you think? Does this change how you see Hera's story? And more importantly, what does it make you think about the stories of survival happening all around us today? Let me know in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts on this. Because if we can learn to see Hera's strength instead of just her pain, maybe we can learn to see it in others too. And maybe that's the most important lesson this ancient story has to teach us.